it is.
Yeah.
There we are. Whew. Okay. Well, hello, everybody. I'm starting today with everybody. I hope you're not offended because I know you don't like when I start with everybody rather than I say, hello, Nektarios, how are you?
I can definitely tell that you've got a lot more energy than me today because it's 8 o'clock in Greece. But my body clock, because I've only arrived yesterday, my body clock is 6 a.m.
Okay. So I appreciated you showed up. Namaste.
It's all good, but not with the same energy that you have.
That's okay. We'll balance. But it's true. I mean, it's 11 a.m. Here in Karachi. I had my morning yoga today, a little bit of 5-minute meditation, which I thought will be a little too short, but actually it was just about right. Then I got completely triggered by Nadim. So I was like, the whole meditation went into the trash. And then I was re-listening to our episode and conversation with Nemo, which brought me into a beautiful place. So I'm back again. But that's about the roller coaster of emotions. Yeah, I guess that's what it is. But anyhow, tell me. Tell me.
It's interesting because triggering has become a word that people are using a lot more than a couple of years ago even. And it's funny because I do realize that it has its value, because I think 3 years ago you would have said, and this morning Nadine really annoyed me. But the point is that by saying triggering, it puts it on you, because he has done something not intentionally annoying you. He just did something and you had a response to this, right? So in a way, I realized that my judginess on fashionable words was out of place. It's a good word.
I love how you went through this whole cycle of judging me, then reflecting on the judginess, sharing it with me that you judge me, and then actually saying, I went out of that cycle. I'm not judging you and I'm good with it. And this happened literally in 5 seconds.
It wasn't specifically audio. It was generally that word. I didn't even think.
All of us. No, yeah. I hear you. But you know what? When you said it, so if I say Nadim annoyed me, I feel that feels like it landed much deeper, that I actually allowed it to dig in or, like settle in. When I say the trigger, I hear you, because it does make a difference. I visualize a lot of the emotions or the words I say. So triggering feels like he was like rubbing a little bit, but I didn't allow him to get too deep because I was ready to kick it out. So that's how I've been through this whole visual exercise. I think my therapist would be very happy with me, because that's what she's trying to develop, this physiosomatic experience of visualizing the emotions that too often stay up here in the head. So
I'm not very good with visualizing stuff, but I experienced that for the first time in my life a few weeks ago.
Okay,
and I didn't notice I was doing it. I was in Las Vegas at this really busy conference, and I really, really didn't enjoy it. Really didn't enjoy it. And I was very vocal about it. And some people described it, I was like a child throwing its toys out of the pram. But I really there were so many reasons why I didn't like it. But the interesting thing for me, without any intention, it just at some point came up I could see myself on my flight out of that city 3 days later. And that became my lifeline. That really thing, every time something got too much, I just instantly brought up this image physically. Kind of, I had a nearly physical experience of sitting in that economy seat.
Which, by the way, is a big thing. Okay,
it's a big thing. It's a big thing. It's a 5-hour flight.
Friend of mine.
So yeah, so it helps. It helps, and
it does
I
help.
don't know if you.
No, it does help. Sorry, you wanted to finish your thought.
No, that was it.
Yeah, no, it does help. It does help. I feel like in the actual moment, I feel like sometimes to even feel like, wow, like where is this, right? And something sparks. I often see colors. So through those exercises that I do in my therapy, like I often associate colors to emotions, and it's actually something quite powerful, because that color stayed with me for much longer than just, let's say, if it's just a narrow word, right? And there's no sort of deeper association with it. But yeah, I hear you about that plane. I do remember once you brought that memory back to me, is that I was going on holidays with Matei and a group of our friends, and we were going to New York, and I was working still in London at that time. And I had so much of busyness and overwhelming feelings in my life at that time, just by the nature of the environment. I was doing consulting, which I didn't really enjoy. It was all very concrete heavy. Concrete meaning like the concrete buildings and stuff. That's already like I'm visualizing. And I remember them suggesting, hey, let's go for a holiday to New York. And I said yes, even though I suffered through it. I tell you, that visualization that you had in LA, I remember sitting on the plane to New York. They were so excited, over the moon. And I was drawing pictures of nature in my notebook and being miserable and like that child, just feeling, what am I doing to myself? And I literally started looking for flights to Hawaii, and I started manipulating Matei to like, hey, should we just do some Hawaii, greenery type of Zen escape? But anyhow, so I hear you. It can be quite powerful, at least a mental picture and lifeline, like you said. So my hello to everybody was to also, I guess, just to welcome everybody back to our Naked and VNN. We were trying to record last week. It didn't work for all kinds of reasons. And then I actually felt that it was meant to be, because egoistically, personally, I took more time to also re-listen to our latest conversation with Nemo, which, if you guys have not heard yet, I would strongly, strongly recommend. I actually did feel, Nektarios, that I'm going to recommend it on into my networks. Like, if you haven't heard anything on Naked, do listen to this one. That's how I felt it was powerful, and it sort of landed deeply with me. So I don't know if that's necessarily where you want us to start, but I know that you shared with me that you had quite a lot to share around Nemo and also identity and different thoughts. So maybe, if you don't mind, I'll just nudge you to sort of share some of your thoughts as a starter.
It wasn't that I had a lot to share. I think I agree with you that it was quite a special episode. I think it was interesting on so many levels, but the reason I was keen to discuss this episode was Nemo is our first guest who identifies as non-binary. So there's a whole conversation we can have about people struggling with people on the gender identity spectrum and pronouns, and without ever having spoken to anybody, that's one avenue we could go down on. But the other thing that I really enjoyed about the episode with Nemo was very much the acknowledging how difficult things are, and that sometimes the right thing on paper is not the right thing for us. So a lot of it is about compromising. And
expand, please. What do you mean when you say something on the paper is not right for us?
So Nemo talks about how, as somebody who identifies as non-binary and somebody who from the outside looks like a tall man with a deep voice, sometimes would love to wear something that doesn't reflect that gender, would like to show up in a dress, or and then we talk a lot about authenticity, and we talk a lot about being true to yourself and all these things. Yeah. But this decision in the morning before a big investor meeting, where can you show up the way you deep inside want to show up today, if this means that your business might actually suffer from this, or the investor might not invest in you, or the client will not sign the contract purely because of your need for authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing about the conversation was ultimately Nemo giving themselves, but also us, permission to say, you know what, sometimes it's okay to do that because you made that choice that moment. And it's a conflict and it's a difficult situation and it never goes away and it doesn't get any easier and there's no solution. That was quite eye-opening for me. Just this moment of also saying, you know what, we're all crusaders of souls, we're all fighting our battles, but you're also all compromising all the time, and stop beating yourself up about this compromise. That's maybe one way of summarizing my experience of that conversation. It's not exactly what Nemo said, but that's what I heard.
Yeah. It was that part around like, so he's building this business that is trying to take bias out of hiring and recruiting process, right? What is that? And then Nektarios is making faces on me.
I'm not making faces. I was just saying they are building a business.
Oh man, you see, this is the Crusaders. Yes. So Nemo identifies with they, them, and I publicly apologize, but it is a constant reminder. I mean, that's what it is, right? But I should know better. But I'm not gonna beat myself up for it. So Nemo, and now you made me so self-conscious, because now I'm like thinking, actually, it's an interesting moment because I want to actually very much respect their choice. And it does take a conscious effort, and I'm ready to make that effort. At the same time, I'm like, please don't beat me up. Neither am I going to do that for myself for making mistakes, because I'm going to make them, because this is new for me and I'm learning. So I think it's, it's like that. And I had like nasty experiences in the past, unfortunately, around this space, actually, with the pronouns. And I think sometimes it's just, I do, and I know it's a rabbit hole, but it was an important rabbit hole. I felt that I do appreciate when we and everybody around ourselves, that if I would like to request something from you, and I know it's new for you, I also give you the space to actually learn and adjust and be on that journey with me. And I see you nodding, but yeah, so I think it was just important reflection, because first emotion was like, oh shit, I should know better.
I think so. Every trans person I know, there's not many, but there's a few, who has preferred pronouns, is very forgiving when people slip up.
Yeah, forgiving is the word.
Some people genuinely don't care. It's like, these are my preferred pronouns. Some people go with, we're all human, it's a transition, it's fine. The problem is usually not when you try to use the right pronouns that you make a mistake. The problem is usually when people tell you have no right to ask this of me, and this is not how you started what you were saying, right? We're all making an effort. If I have a friend who I've known for 10 years, longer than 10 years, and it's a process, right? It's absolutely a process. Bizarrely, when somebody's getting married, and if a woman is getting married, because that's usually what happens, and suddenly she has a different surname, we all just accept it as a given, and after a while we're using your surname without any other consideration, because we're used to it, right? So I'm pretty sure I'm not using any scientific arguments here in the trans and pronouns debate, but it's become such a highly politicized subject, and reality is, it's not difficult. It's just a question of getting used to it, and in the journey we're going to slip up, and people are normally okay with that.
That was the word that was on my mind, is kindness. Kindness to ourselves, but then with the kindness approach the other if they request something like this from ourselves. So with that in mind, and I'm gonna hug myself with the kindness. No, okay, that was too much. But anyhow, so coming back to
you do have so much more energy today than
I don't know if the right platform to put it out, but this is also part of who I am, our unique weird selves. So it was quite impactful episode for me, for some of the reasons that you mentioned, and it is the compromising authenticity. And I think one thing that Nemo said, which is about having a choice, and I felt that was one of the most powerful parts. And what it meant was that when we approach certain situation, Nemo reflected that when they decide, am I going to wear the white t-shirt for that investor meeting, or am I going to come up in the dress? I actually do have a choice in this moment. I think it's quite pragmatic. I mean, is it outraging me or creating rage and some sort of anger or discomfort in me? For sure. I acknowledge that. At the same time, there is an emotion of pragmatism or a sense of pragmatism around recognizing the system within which we operate and where we are today. So that's where, for me, the choice comes in. For me, as Vladi, as a white woman, being the youngest of my 3 co-founders, living in a Muslim country and building my business in Pakistan is the conscious choice I have made. Is it making me many times uncomfortable in situations where patriarchy is confronting me, and it challenges my self-identity, brings up imposter syndrome, all kinds of, not really healthy emotions? That is reality. Am I gonna walk away tomorrow because of how it makes me feel today? Today, I'm saying no. I'm not going to walk away, because what I'm building and everything around it, and I think that's what I felt from Nemo as well, I'm making a choice to stay in. I'm not going to say I'm going to be passive also and fully just accept all that. So in some way, I feel them as negative, harmful feelings, right? And the triggers. I'm trying to also show up in different ways where I can. I try to maybe educate. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the right word, but provide feedback. So there is some sort of a way to show up. But that choice, I felt, was so powerful to name it, that some of us do have a choice. I don't want to say this sort of generically and apply this to everybody, because I think there are circumstances and life journeys and identities of people where they might not have the choice, and that is also very true. In Nemo's case, and if I reflect on myself, I do have that choice. It is a privilege that I have the choice. And I think when he said that it gives him, when you ask him about like what helps him to also show up, right? And or it was yourself, myself, when we ask him about what helps him to build that resilience and come back when, it's not necessarily the easiest moment, he did say the fact that I can come back home and I realized that actually the fact that I show up was my personal decision. It was my choice. And I do that as well quite often. Through conversations in my therapy, I come back to that self-awareness. So that said, compromising authenticity is freaking hard. I have a few examples I want to actually share with you where I felt it was about compromising oneself's either identity and authenticity, which is also linked to our beliefs. And I have one example that I sort of went through, but I'll just pause. I mean, because that was a long monologue anyhow.
You're very, very passionate right now, which is fascinating to experience. The combination of having a choice and making that choice and judging yourself about potentially making the wrong choice when it comes to your identity, that was for me the crux of the conversation with Nemo. My immediate reaction to this was very simple in my day-to-day life as a gay man. And when I make the choice of not to be open about being gay, it's usually around safety. And in that case, I noticed that it doesn't feel right, but it's definitely better than the fear of
I
not
hear
being
you.
physically safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very simple things like my husband and I, we usually hold hands wherever we go, but there's certain parts of London where we definitely won't. And we had to have a chat about this at the beginning because we both realized that implicitly we just stop holding hands when we go into a dodgy area. And there's a whole stuff in it to unpack, but there's a choice that we feel we have to make. And then it's okay to go, you know what? It's not always kind of march in the streets with rainbow flags. Sometimes it's also important to make a choice. It's not comfortable. And I, with my political head, keep kind of questioning myself and all that, right? That was a simple example. But that permission to go, you know what, it's okay to make that choice, that was really important for me. But I'm curious to hear your lived experience now, because you have something probably bigger.
No, not necessarily. Actually, I don't think so. I mean, I'll share it, but I think there is, I don't know whether there is anything bigger than when you compromise your own self-identity in terms of like, I do want to share experience where I actually did feel it was important to stand up for what I felt was right. But it was in some way related to who I am, because this is intrinsically what I believe. And I think those two are intertwined. But I think it gets even more personal when it's actually about simply who you are. And you made me think also, and this is in no way, no shape and form am I trying to picture this negative view about, you know, living in Pakistan, but it is just being factual, right? So the same, I guess, in similar way, not the same, but similar way that you and Wei cannot hold hands in certain areas of London, I cannot give a kiss to Nadim on the street here, right? Or, yeah, I mean, any intimate physical. And it is something very new, and it was uncomfortable to me, but still I feel that is a little bit still further away from, you know, the sort of self. It is expression of self. But on that safety also, I do cover myself, and sometimes I would do it differently, but like I put, you know, covers and stuff where I don't feel, and this is not just necessarily in Pakistan, but it is, yeah, you might compromise other choices, right? But my example is a bit different. It was here, but I think this could have happened anywhere in the world. So basically we were in the room, and we were trying to close a pretty big deal of potentially acquiring another company. And it was early days. And I was in the room with my two other co-founders here at Neem, Nadim and Naeem. And there was another gentleman who is very senior leader, and he's recognized by the industry. And he's senior both by his experience, but also age. Okay, so let's say I think he's somewhere around probably early 60s or so. And there is this cultural nuance, I think it's cultural or societal nuance, that is that there is a lot of respect towards people with a lot of experience, and it comes with a hierarchy, etc., to the level that it's not very common that people speak up against it. So let's put it that way. So we are in this room having a conversation, and this gentleman is representing the other business, and we are having an open debate and stuff. And suddenly he starts using language which is about younger entrepreneurs, and it is a language that I found harmful and disrespectful. And he said that word, and I think in the collective, like my other two co-founders actually didn't consider it as harmful, but I felt that this was not accepted. Like, I don't accept this type of language around me. And so he said that word, and then unfortunately my other co-founder, who I think with a genuine intention of sort of, he had the bigger purpose in mind. He was trying to close the deal. So he started mirroring the guy, and he actually used a similar word to address the younger entrepreneurs. I couldn't stand it. And I did something which I think none of them expected, which is not a big thing, but I think for them it was big, because one, I'm younger. Second, I'm a woman. And third, you don't do this against this hierarchical experience, everything. I literally stopped them and said, excuse me, but can you please not use this language? I think it's not respectful and it's not working well with me, and I don't think we should be using it. So you should see their faces. I mean, and this is not for me to show off like, oh, I challenged the big guy. Not at all, but it took courage, believe me, because I felt that I'm going to potentially compromise a deal because that guy can get offended. I'm going to potentially compromise my position here because I'm going to be looked at as, oh, this emotional woman, what is she making up? She's not speaking non-substance, etc., etc. But I just couldn't. Like it was so within me. And so I just wanted to, I guess, share that example that I guess there are moments where we decide to sort of slip in and say, it's okay, I'm making the choice of being silent today. And there are moments like this one where I felt, no, I'm gonna speak up. And I mean, in that situation, they actually said, they apologized and said that. So it landed well. And I didn't compromise their business, but yeah, those are not easy choices to make, I guess, in our everyday journeys.
It was when we talk again today directly, indirectly about identity, and we talk about being yourself and all these beautiful things. The one thing that stuck with me with Nemo is that how many different hats they can wear because of this really diverse background. We did talk about this particular conflict, though, really in the context of being an entrepreneur, which was a very new experience for Nemo as well, right? This was very, very different from anything else they've done before. It's not the musician, it's not the artist, it's not the mathematician, academic, wunderkind. It was really there was an element of, I've entered your world. So Nemo talking to us saying, I've entered your entrepreneurial world, and gee, it's hard, right? It's difficult. I have to ask myself some questions that were maybe new to me. I think the best thing for me was definitely that there are no answers. There's no fix, quick and easy. So people always like to have these lists, you know, there are 5 things you can do, blah, blah. This is so every time you have to come back to this and make a choice.
Yeah.
And you have to make a choice. And if it's a choice, it's hard. That doesn't sit right. Just be aware of why you're doing it and give yourself a break.
Yeah, that feels right. I think that last part, that being clear about why we're doing what we are doing, right? That level of self-awareness, I think, can be quite empowering and in some way liberating, that it takes a little bit of the weight away. But yeah, it is actually beautiful. You made me smile thinking about all the different facets of us, and Nemo beautifully sort of shared that with us. It also made me think about, oh wow, like it is not like you now define yourself as an entrepreneur and you are now like boxed for the rest of your life. And I feel like for too often we come across these type of reflections or stories, life stories and doubts around like, can I be something else? Like, who am I? Right? Am I like, in that way, I think this episode was also quite beautiful, that it actually gave that permission to at least think about it.
I was re-listening to it at a time where I'm going through a difficult phase with my other business, and me being the people pleaser. I don't like when I do something that other people don't like. And it sort of also helped with that recognition of, you know what, you're doing what is right for the business, but also right to your values. And if that means that it generates conflict, it's not pleasant and it's going to be difficult, and it still is difficult, but at the same time, it feels like the right thing to do. So there was a choice and it's okay. You know, it goes back to, you made a choice. You made it for the reasons that made sense at that time. And if you reflect on them now, you may have done things differently, but also not necessarily. And I think we all have these things. Or actually, I'm making an assumption here. I think many of us have it, but also there's people where sometimes you wonder, Jesus, is there no questioning going on inside? Is there no reflection about, is this the right thing? Have I blah, blah? Because there's also the segment of the people around us who generally don't go through this process. And sometimes I envy that. Sometimes I really go, I wish I could switch my brain off that questions everything and tries to understand. And or what my therapist tries to do with me when I'm talking about people. She goes, Nektarios, it's about time you put the empathy into the room next door again, because there's no room for the empathy here. This is about you. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, I hear you. I would like to also turn it off sometimes, and which sometimes might feel like, I'm not sure if overanalyzing is probably is not the right word, but it's like, as you said, like trying to find the answers, whilst I feel like living intentionally and being self-aware. I think regardless, even though it sometimes feel heavy and intense, it still feels very, very authentic to me as a healthy way of showing up and living. And I'm trying to be committed to it. And sometimes just be like now. But it was lovely to talk to you. I think it's probably a nice note to close for today, unless you have anything else you want to share with the world.
No, it's just interesting to see how our conversation managed to bring your exuberance and your extreme energy a little bit down.
Yeah,
no,
in
it's
a
been
good
lovely.
way though.
No, it's nice. It's early in the day, but it's my first day back in Athens in a while, so I'm really excited about having a working day ahead of me where there's sunshine, and I'm in Greece, which is always energizing me. So
enjoy it, and enjoy the feta cheese. That was my first thought. What a biased world we live in. This is disgusting.
The feta cheese, beautiful. I will have lots of it. Trust me.
Okay, lovely.
Lovely.
Take care, everybody, and we'll talk to you very soon. Have a good day, Nektarios. Ciao, bye.
And to you, Vladi. Bye bye.